Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. It's a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express, the important news and editorial that will be relevant for the preparation of civil services examination will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 6th of April. The first important news is about the open source seed movement. Second, that is Coastal Aquaculture Authority Amendment Bill 2023. Third, Supreme Court lift telecast ban on One Media or Media One. We'll see what was the issue. Fourth, that is service PMI signal slowdown in sector growth. And the last is an editorial takeaway from the UN World Water Conference. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further ado, let's get started. And if you're new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do press a like button. And if you'll be appearing for this particular year civil services examination, you need to have a good practice. And we are providing integrated test series both for prelims and mains with 30 prelims and 8 all India test will be there. There will be free mentorship that is included. Apart from this, there will be IS Get State magazine, and you'll be also provided test on previous year questions, current affairs, full length test on CSAT. For more details, check out the description section of this video where you can get further detail and you can register for this particular test series. Now, moving to the first news, that is about open source seed movement, something important for General Studies paper 2. That is the government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from a design and implementations. So farmers have innovated and shared the seeds without any intellectual property right for centuries, right? In that conditions, there was no right that was claimed in this context. But something new has evolved out of this context, and we'll see this from the US perspective also. So there has been they haven't sought any exclusive right when it comes to seed or germ plants to prevent other innovations on the seed, right? This is what the practice was there. Now, however, the emergence of the global IPR, that is intellectual property right, over the plant variants, there were dire need for the open source seed. What is this open source? We'll see in detail. So किसे open source seed कहेंगे? The open source model is actually something that called for seeds and plant variety that was proposed. This actually started in 2002. This was an initiative that started. Now the open source seed movement promote sharing of plant seeds without intellectual property restriction. So in this case, there will be no restriction. This has come up with the initiative named as Open Source Seeds Initiative. Now in India, the Center for Sustainable Agriculture, that is CSA Hyderabad, they have developed a model that include an agreement between the CSA and the recipient of the seed or germinations, right? Germ plants basically. Now, what they were trying to use an approach through 3 farm produce organization and engage in the seed productions. So the part of the details were shared, but they were shared only with the farm produce organization. Now, under the Indian Plant Variety Protections, the Farmers' Right 2001, the farmer can register their farmer varieties meet certain conditions and have a right to rescue, replant, and exchange the seeds. Right. So this was the part where the concept of open source seed were actually incepted. Now, significance की अगर बात करें इस तरह की initiatives की, the one potential applications of open source approach is to use like the farmer, which was led for the seed conservation and distribution system, Scalable. This model can help to use promote farmers-led participations, plant breeding exercise. And even बात करें अगर open source principle की, this can help to improve the two-way challenges faced by testing, improving, the part of improvisations and adaptations. All this will ultimately be beneficial for food security and climate resilience. Now, what is IPR regime in this context? There can be a question in prelims and even in mains examination, a direct question can be framed. So first and foremost, if you see about the IPR regime, the arrival of hybrid seed, which was there in basically at the scientific level community, the scientific plant breeding and some other factor confer the developer with a new variety called as plant breeder rights or the patent right, which was particularly in the United States. Now, in this context, in 1994, there was establishment of the World Trade Organization, WTO की खास करके ग्लोबल लेवल पे अगर बात करें IPR regime over plants बनाई गई. Now, this called for the trade-related IPR agreement that required countries to provide at least one form of intellectual property protections. तो एक form of IP protections की बात की गई इसके अंदर. Now, this consolidated the rights of the seed sector that raised concern about the freedom to innovate. Now, at the same time, protection was given, but some farmers that they wanted to innovate and come to the open source were also welcome. Unlike the Green Revolution, जहाँ पे genetic revolutions की अगर बात करें in agriculture, was led by private sector, seed mostly availed as a hybrid or protected by the strong IPR regime. Now, how is IPR protected in agriculture? If you see, like in the broader perspective, there are two major models that protects the IPR. The first is called plant breeder right, and second is called patent. So this is the two-way by which the protection is given in the agriculture sector when it comes to intellectual property. So together, the restrict farmer rights and even the freedom to develop the new varieties using germplasm were from IP protection varieties and thus have increased the number of IP protected plant varieties. So even the initiative is something that should, the open seed initiative is something that calls for mass to get benefit out of it. But through IPR regime, some restrictions and regulation are also as per the WTO IPR regimes. Now, moving to the other news, Coastal Aquaculture Authority Amendment Bill 2023, something important for General Studies Paper 3, that is Conservation, Environmental Pollutions, Degradation and EID. So recently, the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy, they have introduced a bill which is named as Coastal Aquaculture Authority Amendment Bill 2023. And through this bill, which was introduced yesterday by the Minister, this aims to amend the Coastal Aquaculture Authority Act 2005. Now, a question can be framed in the prelims examination both from this particular concept or from here also. So you need to understand both of them. I'll give you a background about the erstwhile bill, that is Aquaculture Authority Act 2005. So what was there in the erstwhile CAA, that is the Coastal Agriculture Authority Act? It was enacted by Parliament to establish the Coastal Aquaculture Authority for regulating activities with the coastal aquaculture in the coastal area of the country. Mostly the coastal area in the country where this part will be regulated. Now there's section 14 of the Coastal Aquaculture Authority that provide for punishment for carrying the coastal aquaculture without registration under the CA 2005. So a mandatory registration is required to get the further rights to do the coastal aquacultures. Now, what is the key feature in the new bill that was passed and proposed by the ministry recently? So the new bill seeks to decriminalize the offenses under the protection ease of doing business and also fine-tune the operational procedures for the Coastal Aquaculture Authority. So the one point that you need to keep in mind is the decriminalization, right? Now, it also aimed to promote the newer norms for the environment-friendly coastal aquaculture, which include the sage culture, seaweed culture, marine ornamental fish cultures, pearl oyster culture, and even have the potentials to create additional employment opportunities. The bill has also provisions to prevent the use of antibiotics and even the pharmacological active substance which is harmful to human health in the coastal aquacultures. Now, moving to the other news, that is Supreme Court lift telecast ban on Media One. This is from the explained page of the Indian Express, relevant for General Studies Paper 2, that is Structure, Organization and Functions of Executive and Judiciary. So while we are discussing this news, recently the Supreme Court has lifted the ban against a media house. The name of the media house is Media One. This is a media house from Kerala and they are Malayalam in origin. There were some issues with regards to right. In this context, this news becomes significant. So in a major judgment, the Supreme Court has recently ruled against the telecast ban that was imposed by the union government on a Malayalam news channel. The name is Media One. Now what Supreme Court has said, Honorable Supreme Court has said that the center refused to renew the broadcasting of the Malayalam channel and restrict their freedom is something that was curtailed, the part of and the violation of Article 19(2) of the Constitution, which called for right to freedom of speech and expressions. So reasonable restrictions लगाई है government ने, which is again something not under the spirit of the democratic setup and even not it's against the violations of the fundamental rights. Now the court has passed the judgment in a special leave petitions which was filed by the Madhyam Broadcasting Limited MBA. Now, the reply of the central government was given in the sealed cover. So, sealed cover में ये reply दी गई, उसको Supreme Court ने criticize किया that this should not become a habit where every decision or every part of the stand of the central government is given on a sealed cover. So, this is again something important. So, Supreme Court has heavily criticized the High Court approach in upholding the central decision solely on the basis of the sealed covered document submitted by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, you as a general aspirant, as a civil services aspirant, must know what is sealed cover. So, sealed cover, as its name suggests, it refers to a confidential document or information that is submitted in a court in a sealed envelope or a cover, right? Which is something, and even though if order is reserved, these things are kept in the sealed cover where the part of information is not shared with the general public. So the court said that the sealed cover procedures have violated the principle of both natural justice and open justice and devised the procedures for public interest immunity claim and less restrictive alternative. Now, just to give you a background of what has actually happened, तो अगर एक timeline के हिसाब से समझने की कोशिश करें, the Malayalam news channel Media One has got security clearance from the Home Ministry. This is in way back 2011 when UPA 2 government was in power. So at that point of time, they were given the assent, they have given the green signal to operate, right? Now, subsequently, what has happened in December 30, the Information and Broadcasting Ministry gave the Madhyam Broadcasting Limited, this is the holding company, right? The companies that run Media One, an uplink for 10 years. Right now, in January 31st, 2022, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting have revoked the permission. They have cancelled the permissions after the Home Ministry refused to grant fresh clearances, the security clearances which is required because the foreign funding are also involved. Now, according to the Supreme Court, the Ministry of Home Affairs has cited that the channel promoters are linked to Jamaat-e-Islami Hind, which the government has, the Ministry of Home Affairs has actually banned and recognized as a terrorist organization. Right? So that was a complete part of the background that you essentially must know. Now, when we are talking about this, one thing that is also important to discuss is the press freedom. Now, when it comes to press freedom, Supreme Court noted that independent press is vital for the robust functioning of the democratic republic. Now, if you see in India's context, in 2021, India's rank was 142. Now, this has slipped to 150, which is again, for international media and for other journalism part, this is something, a matter of great concern. Now, the Apex Court noted that the power to speak truth, even that should be presented to the citizen. It might be hard fact, but even the right of the democratic right should not be curtailed by the central government using the absurd powers. The homogenization views on the issues would pose a grave dangers to democracy. So the number here become important for many other government examination if you're preparing for. The number for 2022 is 150. Earlier it was 142. Now, moving to the other news, service PMI signals slowdown in the sector's growth, something relevant for General Studies Paper 3 under the subtopic that is Indian economy and issues related to planning, mobilization, resource growth and development. So according to the S&P Global India Services, which actually publishes the Purchasing Manager Index known as PMI, so they said that India service sector lost some momentum in March, and even the new orders output continue to rise by 20 straight month. Now the PMI figure shows that 57.8 was there from 59.4 in February, and a reading above 50 indicates the expansion activity in the Indian economy. Now, input cost inflation की बात की गई है. As per the PMI index, it has noted that the input cost inflation has dropped to the lowest level since September 2020, when even the COVID pandemic was there, and reported high expenses accounted for the rising food, fuel, transportation, and the wage cost. Now, new hiring was fractional, almost 98% of the firm, leaving their payrolls number unchanged from February. Now, one important point that you must also take into consideration, that there's an advancement of international orders which is there. So S&P Global, which has published the PMI, have reported that the upstick in the international order was also evidential, and the overall order book grew at the softer pace in February. Or service provider की अगर बात करें, that have passed the higher cost burden to the client by selling the prices for 3-month high pace. Now, on average, the service firm were optimistic, which is about the volume rising, but overall level of the positive sentiments fell to end month low. As lower as the firm foreseen no change in activity from the present level. Now, moving to the editorial of the day, I take away from the UN Water Conference something important for General Studies Paper 2, that is bilateral regional grouping and agreement. And this particular news is also important for your General Studies Paper 3, where government, basically from the environment section, where the part of conservation, EIA and other topics are related. So what we'll be discussing under this editorial, first talking about the theme, and the focus of this article is about the UN World Water Conference, and I'll make you understand this editorial under subheadings. We'll see first background. First we'll get into the background. We'll see the aim, then what is the theme, poor finance and poor water services, global environment facility क्या है इससे related, India or at this conference and the way forward. A brilliant editorial that will give you an insight about the UN World Water Conference. So first thing first, and something that is very, very important, that this is for the first time, this is for the very first time that they have convened the UN Water Conference, right? And on the fresh water after a gap of almost 50 years. If you see water in general, water is a deal maker for sustainable development goal, that is SDG, and even it is important for health and prosperity of both the people and the planet. So this was UN Water Conference, which was there in New York from 22nd to 24th March 2023. The venue is New York, important for examination, and this is for the first time in the past 50 years that this has happened, right? So these are some of the factual points. Now, one important point that is very important for your prelims examination per se, that this water conference is co-chaired by the government of Tajikistan and Netherlands, be a watershed moment. Very, very important point. Make sure you note this. And the water action agenda is a voluntary and legally non-binding commitments. Now, moving to the aim, what is the aim and why this conference was held? So the UN World Water Conference aimed to mobilize the member state, जहाँ पे UN system और जो उनके stakeholders है, they will be taking actions and even bringing success solutions at the global stage when it comes to water and even the part of the sustainable use of water. That will also catalyze the actions on the conference that they're using the voluntary commitment, galvanizing the program to a water action agenda. Now, before I proceed with other details, some factual information that is relevant. So if you see the meeting drinking water, sanitation, hygiene targets by 2030 will require 4-time increase in the progress of the path. Now, at current rate, like if you see, it is 1.6 billion people will lack safety management of drinking water, 2.8 billion people will lack safety management of sanitations, and 1.9 billion people will lack the basic hygiene facilities. So we need to incorporate the part of sustainability so that water can last longer, and even life for the future generation should be at the normal pace. Now, theme की अगर बात करें, there are 5 important themes, and this is very, very important. Specifically, when it is about the mains examination, you can use this all part in the mains, right? Directly आप इसे quote कर सकते हैं mains में. This is very much important. So, if you see the part of the conference, it has 5 themes as per the SDG goal. I'll tell you what is SDG goal 6 in a while. Just wait, we'll discuss first theme. So, water for health, that is access to wash, that is global water, sanitation and hygiene, including the human right to drinking water and sanitation. The second is water for sustainable development, that is valuing water and water energy nexus at the sustainable economic and urban development. So these are the theme that is mentioned. You'll not find this detail in editorial, but from examination perspective, these things are important. That is why I have incorporated in the discussion. Now, third is water for climate resilience and environment, source to sea, biodiversity, climate resilience, and disaster risk reductions. The fourth is water for cooperation, that is transboundary and international water cooperations, cross-sectoral cooperations, and water across 2030 agenda. Now, fifth is the water action decade, that is accelerating the implications of the objective for the decade of actions, including the UN Secretary General Action Plan. So these were the 5 broad themes upon the discussion was made. Now, what is SDG Goal 6? This become very important for your examination. This is SDG Goal 6, which call for clean water and sanitation. It call for ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. But it has different vertical and domain and subsection. We'll see that also because this is relevant for mains. Now, अगर 6 की subsections की बात करें, there are 6.A which call for safe drinking water for all, 6.2 sanitation for all, 6.3 better water quality, 6.4 better efficient use of water, 6.5 is integrated water management, and 6.6 call for healthier ecosystem. Now there's 6.A which call for international cooperations and 6.B which call for more local participation. Even you can take the screenshot for your revision purposes. Now, poor finance and water services, poor water services is a big issue. Definitely finance is a big issue. Meeting the target would definitely require an expenditure for 114 billion per year. And even to overcome the problem of wash, some amount that is 4 billion to cover 30 billion by 2030 would be required. So meeting this target will definitely required. And if you see the poor water service target, the metering was triggered by resilience from the country like India, even Ireland, because the concern for equitable access and affordability of water was the issue. Now there's a global environment facility. I think most of you must be aware of GEF, GEF, where GEF is the only international funding mechanism that has been able to cover 300 watersheds and even the part of the global number for aquifers across the political boundaries that call for more states with its grant and concessional loan. So GEF in general for prelims examination is relevant. Now, India at the conference की अगर बात करें, how India's role is important and something which is inevitable in the context. So India's commitment at the conference called for an investment of 240 billion at the water sector to restore the ground level. And even for 2021, there was a CAG report which says that the groundwater extractions has been increased from 58% to 63%. This was a report that was there by the CAG. Very, very important for both prelims and mains examination. Now, this has further been escalated by the climate change, resulting in the international commitment or reinvestment, where the rainfall and further determine the recharge of the potential. If the rainfall is less, definitely the recharge would be impacted. So the revised groundwater bill 2017 vests the state ground board with the creating laws, managing the water allocations and other relevant issues. And last but not the least, that the state board are understaffed and lack of expertise in prioritizing the the socio-political conflict over the groundwater resources is a big problem. We need to overcome this. Now, way forward की अगर बात करें, the UN Water Conference will provide a roadmap for countries, specifically countries, sector or river basins के लिए, and this is like time where the water-related challenges should be accelerated as per the UN SDG Goal 6 और उनके parameters को meet करने की जरूरत है. This बार की जो conference हुई है, water conference, that has took place within like on the ambit on the part. अगर बात करें कुछ और conferences की, that is the UN Water Conference in 1997 and United Nations Economic Commissions on Europe. These are the Water Convention in 1992. These two are the legally binding. But this one, the World Water Conference, was not a legally binding. So some enforcement part should also be involved, right? It remains to see whether the commitment made by the conference will ensure universal, safe, affordable, and equitable water access, because if the core idea is not met, if the SDG target 6 is not met, there would be no sense for this kind of high level conference. Now, moving ahead with the MCQ questions of the day, before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday questions. For first question, the correct option is B. For second question, the correct option is C. Today's MCQ for practice about the credit rating agency. They shall and verify support consideration document to ensure the unconditional, legally enforceable CRA regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. Do pause it, pause this video, read out the complete statement, then proceed for the answer. The second question is about the International Civil Aviation Organization, established under the Conventions on International Civil Aviation known as Sydney Convention, and ICOA is funded by 193 national governments. So do check it out for the correct option. This was all about for the daily news and editorial discussion, followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.